What's up, dudes? So I came up with an idea. I get a lot of like direct messages, a lot of like emails, just like a lot of questions in general. They're all good questions that are coming from individuals who are wanting to get better. Therefore, I always respect that because I'm always saying like, hey, like ask questions, because I'm that type of way. Like if I don't understand something or if I want to know something, I'm going to ask somebody that I potentially think knows the question. So I don't know if that was confusing or not, but anyways, instead of like just responding to DMs like one-on-one, which I still will, but I want to make like some sort of platform, like content library, just like I'm going to do with this, where I'm going to hit on a majority of the topics that I get questions about, right? So now what this allows me to do is reach a wider audience and hopefully well equip you to gain information and gain insights and progress and move forward in your career. That doesn't mean like you can't direct message me. I don't want to seem that, like I totally am against that, because I'm not. But it just allows me, like if someone comes to me and has a question about, proper throwing program, and I made a video on that topic of me talking about it, now I can direct him to a video in which it would have a lot more in-depth detail than just me responding, to a text or a DM. So it's kind of best of both worlds. All right, so now that you guys have the foundation of what this is, I think I'm going to throw these on YouTube, have like a whole YouTube series or a segment, and then just direct the individuals from Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is to the YouTube channel. So these are just going to be like, regular pitching talks. I know I've been doing some on Instagram Live, and then throw them on my Instagram, what is it called? IGTV? Yeah, that's what it's called. And then throwing them on my IGTV. Still think I'm going to do that just because I think it's a pretty interesting platform. But yeah, so anyways, I actually want to start this off with, I had a client reach out to me actually this morning, and he's gonna enjoy this one because this is gonna be the first one that I do. But had him reach out, and he was curious as far as what do pitchers do when it comes to like the off season, when it comes to the particular amount of time that you have before you need to get ready for like the next season, right? So for professional ball players, the window is probably a little bit more condensed, a little shorter, and then it just trickles down to like college, high school, little league or whatever. With this particular subject, I'm never going to say there is a right and a wrong answer, because both of those, it's kind of like good and bad mechanics. Like it's kind of relative at that point, because at the end of the day, it is whatever allows your body and your arm to feel optimal. That is all we want. And the question is, how do we get there, right? And for me, it's about like being experimental, because I know there's a lot of guys that I've played with, in the professional ranks that have a strict, like, I put the ball down, I go on multiple vacations, I don't think about baseball, and I lose myself in other things. I'm a human being, not a baseball player during the off season. There's guys that I know that put the ball down for a week of like no throw, and then pick it back up and play light catch, and they just keep going. You know, I know Scherzer kind of made it public that he just throws year round. You know, he's not throwing you know, full intent year round, but he's throwing. You know, I know Trevor Bauer with the Indians, at Driveline, he makes it public that, you know, as soon as like he's done with his season, he's up at Driveline like already going, you know, because he's got a lot of work to do. My belief is that your body and your arm will totally adapt to whatever routine that you give it. So all I can do in this position is inform you guys on like how I've approached it and how I've gone about it, and then kind of what I've seen other people do and seen the success that they've had by doing whatever they do. The beauty of baseball and the beauty of throwing a ball in general, or the beauty of being a pitcher, is like it's so individual. It's not, there's just no room for a cookie cutter approach at any given point. Like you can't, there's just no room for it. You can't look at a group of 10 random pitchers and say, okay, we're gonna have every single pitcher throw the exact same way, do the exact same routine, eat the exact same way, you know, approach hitters this exact same way, set guys up this exact same way. Like we can't do that. We can't be in this box. That's the beauty of it to me, is because that allows us to be way more mindful of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we go about it. So what I can do, like I said at this point, is tell you what I've done. When I was in high school, I was a basketball player. So when my baseball season was over in the fall, because I would play fall ball, I would put the baseball down. Like I'd pick up the basketball, I'd put the baseball down, and I'd play basketball from, you know, I can't remember the months it was. Like, you know, say it was, say my fall season got over in September. So it was like October, November, and December, I think maybe I took off. My birthday is December 15th, and I have memories of in high school like always starting to kind of just touch a ball, like get in the mindset of throwing, like maybe light catch on my birthday. That's kind of what I've always remembered. That was in high school. It changed, I think, as I got older, because I remember my senior year in high school, that's when like I was getting scouted and like I was gonna get drafted, and I was like a high priority or whatever, and I was like, okay, I should probably get ready earlier, because as soon as the baseball season starts, which is like starts in February, I need to be like ready to rock, like ready to come out freaking guns a-blazing. So my senior year, I remember starting playing catch a lot earlier than I would have any other year. But yeah, like my first start of my senior season, because we had just got done with basketball. I don't know, whoever's listening or watching, I guess, would if it was like this at your school, but as soon as like our basketball season ended, like that next day, then we could show up at baseball practice. And I remember, since we were a good basketball school, our basketball season ended that next day. It was like a practice, and then the day after that was a game. And I think it was something to where, like, my first start, I was only gonna go like 2 or 3 innings, but I showed up and like there was 50 scouts there. And I kind of set myself up for that, knowing that I needed to, like I said, be ready to rock that first game. So that goes without saying, like, you got to prepare your body and you got to prepare your arm for whatever that timeline is for you to be ready. Because I think the demand for talent these days, you know, college, high school, like whatever it is so high that you can't afford to show up and have your first few games like, oh, I wasn't really in baseball shape, my arm wasn't really ready. I just don't think or believe that we can afford that. Now, my once I turned professional, it changed, because I remember my first couple years I went with that kind of similar approach where I was like, okay, I was gonna put the ball down, focus on other things, and then I specifically remember, because like I wasn't a basketball player anymore, I put the ball down and I would do other things, and I would frickin' train like, you know, my butt off. But then as soon as it came time to like pick the ball up again, same time frame around that my birthday, December 15th, it was different. Like my arm just didn't feel good, you know. And I remember making the adjustment after my third season. And granted, like when you're a pro, like you're gonna have longer seasons, more innings. You know, not to mention that sometimes, like my first 3 or 4 years, I got invited to instructional leagues, which lasted for another, you know, month or so. So you're, like I said, the off season is condensed. But and then I think after my third or fourth season, knowing that like I just didn't like the way my body and my arm felt when I picked up a ball after having not, you know, thrown and totally shut it down. I just didn't like the way it felt, so I was like, I'm gonna make a change. So that's when I started implementing like really light catch, like 1 to 2 times a week after a week of putting the ball down. So what would happen was I'd come home from like instructs or come home from the season, and I'd spend like a week of nothing. Like I'd get away. I think it is very crucial for guys, especially during a grinding season, like, you know, long season, ups and downs, roller coasters, plays with your mind, like mentally, physically, you're drained. It is important to take a week or take 2 weeks and get out, go somewhere, take a girlfriend, like take your family, take a buddy, like go on a road trip, just get away from the game and just get your mind in a different space. I think that is crucial, you know, for any athlete. But that's what I would do was, you know, I'd get away for a week or two and then I'd come back, and that's why I'd start implementing just like really light catch. And, you know, the days that it wasn't light catch, like maybe light band work, maybe some like light dumbbell stuff where I was doing like arm care series throughout. But yeah, you know, it was just something that I wanted to try out, and I think that allowed me to get the season going early on, like better and more efficiently. For some reason, I always struggled in spring training. I'd show up in spring training, and it wasn't that I was out of shape. Like I've always busted my butt. I just wouldn't pitch good. So that's when I started making the change to my off-season adjustment, and it helped me out. I remember like my fourth, fifth, and like sixth spring training, like it was a lot better because I was setting myself up for a little bit more success by just, you know, keeping it going, not really putting a huge stalemate on progress. But then there's a whole different element. So when I was in the 2015 season, that's when I got invited to like the Arizona Fall League. So that was another 2.5 months, I think, of the off season taken up by your playing. You know, so then you get home and you have like 2 months until it's spring training. I remember that particular season, I went to the fall league and then I was going to big league camp. So it was a quick turnaround. You know, big league camp was like middle of February. So I had to make some adjustments there. I think I put the ball down for a week or two, and then I think it was like a week. I put the ball down for a week, went on vacation, I went to Mexico, and then came back and like I was throwing, like, you know, whatever. And then the next 2 off seasons, 2 or 3, I think the next 2 off seasons I went and played winter ball. So that was like a whole different element as well, because you know, you do have to like keep your arm in shape after the real season, from the real season to winter ball, and then after winter ball to the real season. So I actually found that I'm a guy that I feel better the more I throw. So I'm constantly throwing, you know, throughout that whole time. So I think, you know, it got to a point where I was throwing a year straight, 2 years straight, with little breaks here and there. But again, I'm a believer in, you know, your body's adaptable, your arm's adaptable for whatever you train it to adapt to. Now, if you're a guy that, you know, trains at 60 feet the whole off season, and then you go into a season and then you try to like ramp it up to 120%, and you really haven't trained your body, or you haven't trained your arm to handle that capacity, then it gets tough. That's probably when you're going to get tired, you know, injuries can occur, whatever it is. But to conclude all of this, I know it's been a long kind of segment to start it off. I guess I should modify this, but to round all of this up, it's self-identifying what you need, and the only way to self-identify what you need or what your arm needs is to experiment. You know, if you need to be a guy that say does take that 2-3 months off completely of baseball and then try to ramp it up, see how your arm feels, see how you start that season. That's a really big indicator for me, is understanding like, okay, this is how I approached the off season. This was my stats, or this is how I felt on the mound once the season officially hit. Now, you know, that's how you kind of can identify if you took the right approach or not, and then maybe take a different approach another off season or whatever it is. Just take that different approach, see how it plays out for you. I'm well aware that a lot of guys don't have the luxury of taking multiple approaches each and every, say, winter, but that's just kind of that's kind of where I was gonna go with it. Was, you know, you really don't know until you know, right? So you can't say like, oh yeah, my arm feels good when I, you know, throw year around, but you haven't done it yet. So how do you know, right? So that's really the only advice that I can give, is kind of experiment. You know, I do think like even if you're going to be a guy that says, you know, throw year around with a couple mini breaks in there, it's not that you have to keep the intensity at 120% all of year round. Like, it's kind of like in the gym, right? You take deload weeks or you take deload 2 weeks. It's kind of the same thing with your arm, really. You know, say you're ramping it up, say you have like a velo phase, and then you're satisfied with where you're at, and then you kind of ramp it back down, and then you go up. Like, I'm all for that. Like, I've done that. I've responded fairly well to that. I've also responded fairly well to like keeping intensity high through winter ball, right? Like, I don't know, but that's my 2 cents, probably more than 2 cents, since this video is super long. Hope you guys got something out of it. Please, you know, if you're a guy that seeks out quality information, I guess I can't really say my information is quality, but if you do seek out information in general, subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll try to link some stuff through my Instagram account, make some clips or whatnot, and hopefully you guys can get a lot out of it. So that will conclude how I approach an off season, or how I approach a downtime from throwing a baseball. All right, guys. Much love. Appreciate each and every one of you, and best of luck to all of you. See ya.